Welcome, everyone. We will start our webinar. Thank you all for being here tonight for our April transition talk. We appreciate you being here, and coming together is building our community, supporting each other. So tonight, I would invite you all to take time to ask questions in our panel. And also, if you would, please state this area you're from, the state. And if you have a child, the age of your child, so we can kind of create some more conversation around those age groups that are present tonight. We also want to thank our professional colleagues who are here tonight. So if you wish to add your contact information and agency that you represent, people may be in touch with you. And if you are from other states outside of Massachusetts, please indicate that so that people who might be from your area can reach out, because we're building that community. So thank you all for being here this evening. So tonight we're talking about assisted technology and artificial intelligence. And we talked about how these topics will relate to transition. But also, if you are already past transition age of 21 and 22, and you're developing more of an insight in what could be a more independent life, tonight's webinar will really address all those features. And for people without disabilities who are attending, you might get some tips on ways you might increase some supports within your own home that make your life easier. So there's something for everyone tonight. There is a lot to unload. I always suggest that you come away with a few takeaways, and you will receive the recordings after so you can digest it later on your own time. So thank you again. And thank you for everyone. If you're just joining, if you could please put the state you're in, the age of your child, or if you're a professional, your website and contact information. Thank you, Janine. Next slide. So how does artificial intelligence and assisted technology support transition outcomes and also further growth and independence? So AI is emerging and it's changing all the time. If you've been on Google lately, you know that if you type in questions, artificial intelligence answers immediately. Some of you have found the wonders of ChatGPT. My nephew works for Apple and has said that there's so many things emerging in the field. So it's just changing. So what we talk about tonight will be very different in a few months, but it's emerging and exciting. But also there's some amazing apps and technology that we want you to know about. Last May, we had a parent, Alice Bruhard from Colorado, whose daughter suffered a traumatic brain injury at age 5. And I would like you to look at that recording later, so I'll put that in the chat because it relates to tonight's event as well. So assisted technology is any device or software designed to help people with disabilities perform tasks that they might otherwise find challenging or difficult. Artificial intelligence, Min, my colleague tonight, will be talking more about that. This is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. So how does assistive technology support transition or help people with disabilities? First of all, helps them access education and employment opportunities with devices and computers. These make work much easier in education as well. There's also enhanced mobility supports that increase independence, social communication skills, some job-specific tools, and of course, organizational supports, which my colleague Andrea will be talking about tonight. So let's differentiate things a little bit before we start. On the boxes on the right, we have a green box that says smartwatches or mobile apps are ones that help with volume and voice and speaking. There's also audible screen readers and smart devices that have been very helpful. And then also I'm going to talk a little bit about Google Home and some smart devices for the home. And now they're calling it a smart home. And again, the webinar that we did last May with Alice, I will put the link in the chat box and you can look at that later because Alice really spotlighted a smart home for her daughter. So to create an inclusive living environment, using assistive technology, we want to incorporate some of these features. And I'd like to share a few of them today with you before I introduce my colleague, Andrea. These are some apps and techniques that some of my clients have been using in the past, and some of our students are finding some great success. And some of you are already using them. And in the chat box during our webinar, if you are using some of these apps or technology and you want to share some feedback, or later in the Q&A, we welcome that. So first of all, some of you are already using it. My partner told me all about the Google Home thermostat adjustment, which can climate control your home from your smartphone. There's also lighting adjustments that can be created to help you adjust the lighting in your home. And something that some of my students really love are the smart ovens. And one of them that my clients have used is the Tavala oven, but also Brava has an oven that's really geared towards people with visual impairment blind. And someone I was speaking to today who uses one said that they really cool off quite easily. So these are a couple of techniques that I want you to be aware of, some strategies that will make independence in the home more possible. Spoken RX is something that CVS has. So it's a smart tagged prescription label that works with their apps, the CVS app. So you just need to download that. Also, Walgreens has a talking pill reminder. And this has audible beeps. It fits most standard pill vitals, and it has a 30-second recording function. And it's really been useful. There's also a Philips Med machine that some people can preload that is a wonderful adaptive device. So if someone is living in the home and needs prompts to take medication, that is another resource as well. And then Be My app is really amazing. This is using a smartphone. It's free. It provides instant visual descriptions any day or night. And you can also connect with a volunteer and take a picture. And the partners in the service directory will help you to identify whatever it is that you need to see if you have a visual impairment. So we have the links in our resource directory later in one of our slides. So next slide, please. There are some barriers that I want to address with you this evening, and some of it is lack of awareness. Things are emerging very rapidly, so we need to keep abreast of things. So that is why we hope our webinar and future webinars that you might attend will help you. Also, there's sometimes inaccessible physical environments that prevent and create barriers. We are also changing with legislation and policies. The 504 and ADA, we're removing barriers, but they do still exist to this day, unfortunately. There's also lack of funding sometimes that are creating impasses. And then also there's sometimes a hard time finding people and personnel that will help train. So we want to acknowledge those barriers, but we want to provide solutions as well. How do you pay for adapted equipment and assisted technology? There are centers around the country that provide loaning programs. There's a group in Minnesota, Pacer, and then there's other groups around the country that you can actually borrow and loan and try out technology. A lot of agencies also have lending programs. Easter Seals is one that we will have a link in our resource slide. Some employees are providing technology. Rehabilitation, state rehab offices invoke rehab training programs will often pay, particularly if it will help with work. There are some government programs, Social Security and Medicaid, that will help pay, private foundations, charities, certainly school districts. If there's something written to an IEP or 504, then there is a legal obligation to provide the technology to create accessibility. Thank you, Janine. So that was a quick fire introduction that we'll be talking a little bit more. I'm excited to introduce my colleague, Andrea Rutherford, and Andrea is the director of the Perkins Compass program at the Perkins Transition Center. Welcome, Andrea. We're really excited to hear what you have to share tonight.
Thank you, Anne. Good evening, everybody. As Anne mentioned, I am Andrea Rutherford. I'm the director of Compass program here at Perkins, and our Compass program, just to give you a little bit of an idea, is a 9-month fully virtual transition program for high school students with vision loss. Many of our students do have other diagnoses as well, not just vision loss. But it is designed to help them gain insights on post-secondary options and employment paths. And certainly if you'd like more information, feel free to email me. I know my email address is somewhere in these slides. I'm happy to address any questions you may have. Part of our Compass program, we also address executive functioning, and that's what I'm going to talk to you today about, executive functioning and assistive technology tools. I am also an executive functioning coach as well as one of the Compass coaches. So let's get into a little bit of what is executive functioning. Many of you may already know what it is. Some people, it's more of a new term, may not be quite as familiar with it. But ultimately, it is the skills of anticipating, planning ahead, breaking things down into smaller parts, emotional regulation, task initiation, and much more. Why do we need executive functioning skills? Well, it's essential for problem solving and independence. And we are talking about transition. Those are keys to transition skills. It also impacts writing, reading. I won't get into all of that. That's kind of a much larger topic. But there's a little bit more information here in a couple of slides that I can share with you on that. Executive functioning skills, often gets missed or underdeveloped due to a few things. Loss of incidental learning is one of them. If you're not familiar with the term incidental learning, it is essentially for when students are able to observe others doing a task, whatever that may be. So for example, we had a student in Compass a couple years ago who was totally blind, and his mom did not realize that he didn't know that she makes a grocery list every week. He knows that food arrives, he knows she grocery shops, but he didn't realizing that there is a whole process to grocery shopping, making a menu, planning, making a menu, planning out the grocery list, and then going and purchasing things. So when students with vision loss don't have incidental learning, we have to be very intentional with sharing some of the tasks that we do. So that can impact executive functioning. Also, accommodations that reduce opportunities for learning by mistake. So we will get into that a little bit more in a second. We can go to the next slide, Jenny, thank you. So this slide has a chart that explains the expanded core curriculum. And if you're new to that term, that is a curriculum that was developed and designed to work with students with vision loss to help with some of those gaps for incidental learning. So for example, compensatory skills, which would be Braille instruction, tactile symbols, sign language, things like that. Orientation mobility, social interaction, independent living, rec and leisure, career education, assistive technology, sensory efficiency, and self-determination. And then on the right side of the screen, we have executive functions. So as I mentioned earlier, planning and prioritization, working memory, organization, time management, metacognition, response inhibition, emotional control, sustained attention, task initiation, cognitive flexibility, and goal-directed persistence. Many of these are connected, as you can see, while expanded core curriculum is designed for students with vision loss, executive functioning skills are for everybody. And so while I will mention, because I do work with students with vision loss primarily, but also other diagnoses, that I will mention that quite a bit, a lot of this pertains to really anybody. So you can see in this slide where they are connected. Let's go to our next slide, Janine. All right, so to meet the demands of life after high school, What do our students need? They need self-determination, problem solving, planning, self-awareness, initiative. All of those equal executive functioning skills. For some students, it comes very naturally, and for others, it is very hard to develop those skills, or whether it just doesn't come naturally to them, whatever there's a barrier, maybe an area of growth, whatever it is difficult for some of our students to develop those skills, but we can help them with that. This particular slide shares what executive functioning skills can look like in each of the age groups, so elementary, middle, and high school. Elementary school, which we're considering, ages 4 through 11, just learning to pay attention and controlling our impulses or behavior, following simple directions and rules, and recognizing patterns, learning to read, and then reading to learn. Then we get to the middle school age, and executive functioning skills look like learning to think and plan ahead by imagining a future point in time, planning out work, those multi-step directions that our students get. As some of you may know, you may have a student who does really well with single step directions, but if you give multi-step directions, it may be more of a challenge. Problem solving when things don't go as planned. That can be a big challenge for some of our students. Following daily household and classroom routines independently. So they may be doing that in elementary school, but at middle school, are they doing it independently, or do they need some support? And then we get to the high school level, learning to think flexibly and solve problems in new ways, adapting to shifting expectation and rules depending on the context, and then using their social skills and perspective taking to collaborate with their peers and activities. Sorry, I lost my screen for a second here. Give me 1 second. Okay. There are many ways that can impact the development of executive functioning skills. Like I mentioned before, they're often learned incidentally, but for somebody who has limited visual input, that reduces their ability to learn things incidentally, and you may have to be more intentional. For some students, few opportunities to practice and learn and generalize those executive functioning skills. Maybe they have a paraprofessional, and that's not to say they shouldn't have a paraprofessional. Certainly, students do need paraprofessionals, and there are appropriate reasons to have a paraprofessional. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but we do see with some students, they become very dependent on a paraprofessional or an adult. And that's okay, but it gives them less opportunities to practice and learn. So ultimately, we want to make sure that we have a plan of what exactly does the student need support with? What can they do on their own? And when can the adult, whether a paraprofessional or somebody else, gradually step back as appropriate? Of course, we want to set our students up for success. So I'm not saying remove everybody all at once, not at all. They are there for a very good reason. Another opportunity where an opportunity may be missed to practice is reduce academic expectations. We do see for some of our students that they may not be held to the same academic standards as some of their peers. They may very well be, but in some cases we do see where they're not held to the same expectation. I used to work in the public school system, and I had teachers often say to me, well, they tried hard, so we're just going to let this pass. But ultimately, we want to make sure they know what the expectations are and give them the feedback so that they are prepared for those transitions. Another impact can be the lack of tech skills impacting the access, like their typically sighted peers. We obviously live in a very digital world these days. And so having strong tech skills for the different hardware and software is really important. Secondary diagnoses can also impact maybe autism, learning disability, traumatic brain injury, processing disorder. Those are just a few examples. And writing, like I mentioned a few slides ago. Writing requires the ability to organize ideas, creating a hierarchy, recognizing that hierarchy of ideas, and inferential thinking. So are they drawing conclusions in their writing? Some students, some of your students may be using different tools to help them map out their ideas for writing. There's some great tools out there, whether it's a Venn diagram or just some type of brainstorming document so that they can get their ideas out of their head and then organize those ideas that they have. Critical reading is another one. And then consequences are cumulative. So ultimately, why are we unpacking all of this? Because there are many threads that impact these skills. And to be able to recognize the barriers, we have to understand what the source of the barriers are. So let's get into some of the tools. Certainly, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the more common ones, I would say, for different tasks. For task management and organization, there is an app called Todoist. It works across iOS, Android, and web browsers, which I love because we do have students that work on various devices. And I will say I have a student this year in our program who admits that her executive functioning skills are a big challenge for her, and they have been for quite some time. She will, make light of it that she can, she can do all her academic work, but she will often forget, do I have both shoes on? Do I have one shoe on? Like she admits she's all over the place. She started using Todoist probably around the holiday season or shortly after the new year. And it has completely changed her work, her efficiency. And, she has a better understanding of how to time manage, excuse me. And also she has a better idea of how long it's taking her to do tasks. She was greatly exaggerating how often or how long a task would take her. She would have an assignment and say, that's going to take me 2 hours to do. And then she'd sit down and do it. And it would really only take her 20 to 30 minutes. Todoist is a tool that has completely changed that for her and has brought her anxiety and stress level down tremendously. I can't say that it does that for everybody, but it is great to see that it does that for her. So I have used it as well. And I do think it's a great tool. Google Keep, many of us use the whole Google suite. It works on all devices. It can capture, edit, share, collaborate in notes, lists, photos, and audio. It's a great tool. I also use that one myself. Evernote, it works across all devices as well. You can take notes on it, save ideas, improve productivity, and it can be a collaborative tool as well. And for students who do go on to workplace or college, many of us are using collaborative tools. So that's another one. Lucid Chart is a tool for creating diagrams and visual aids to help with planning and organization. Back to that whole writing piece. That's a great question, Carolyn. I did see in the chat. So for many people, it is. I do know so Todoist is free, but then there is also a paid version of it as well. The free version I personally use. I don't pay for it, and I feel like there's enough, but I can see where others may want to take it to that next level and pay. I know the student that I work with, the one I shared, she also uses the free one and is having great success with it. So Janine, let's go to the next slide. I know we're moving along here. So time timer is one example of a visual timer to help keep their focus in time management. Again, some students really struggle with how long it takes them to do things. That's a great one. Alarmed is a reminder and timer app with pop-up alerts, repeat scheduling, and customization options. Google Calendar, I think that's one we're all very familiar with. Focus Keeper, that app uses the Pomodoro technique, and it encourages users to focus on tasks for 25 minutes at a time and then have short breaks. So our students who may get fatigued after more than 25 minutes or whatever it may be, that is a good one. But it also, again, gives them an idea of how long we're really working, what we're really working on for 25 minutes. And then Clockify is a time tracking app that helps track time one spends on various activities. So those are a little bit to help with time management and focus. Organization and note-taking. This is one of my favorite slides and some of my favorite apps, quite honestly. Notability, unfortunately, it's only on iOS devices. However, if you do have an iOS device, I use Notability on my iPad for various things. You can import documents, you can write on it with an Apple Pencil or some type of utensil, and stylus was the word I was looking for. And you can take notes. It has a lot of features that can really help students stay organized. Good Notes is another one. It's an iPad note-taking app. Notion, excuse me, is a platform for writing, thinking, and organizing, which features that support effective time management and note-taking. And then getting into a little bit of the strictly online tools. Glean is a tool that syncs notes to audio and imports presentation slides and can convert it to audio to text. And then Microsoft OneNote is available on all platforms and collaborative tool, similar to many of the Google apps. All right, and let's see. Emotional control. Some of our friends, anxiety, different things that our students deal with. Headspace is a guided meditation, deep breathing exercises, and techniques for managing anxiety, stress, and anger. Calm is a great one. I've used it myself for mindfulness and wellness app. And, just when you're feeling stressed is a great way to recognize the mindfulness and just kind of relax a little bit. And then Mindshift CBT is an app that uses visual tools to help users check in with their thoughts and feelings. All right, and then I'm going to get into a little bit of the AI piece of it, but I'm really going to let Min tackle that. So these are AI pieces from a executive functioning lens, which is really an area that I could go on and on about. But Goblin Tools is an AI tool that'll support executive functioning. Study Fetch is another AI tool to transcribe key takeaways from lectures and materials. You can develop note cards. It has so many different features for students to help them study from their notes. Google Jamboard, another collaborative tool. It has whiteboards with various tools. Desmos is, it's not AI, Desmos, but it is primarily a graphing calculator and math tool, but it indirectly will support executive functioning by providing visual and interactive ways to explore math concepts. Desmos is a tool that many of our students in our program use. And then Cami, which is an online annotation and markup tool, which is another great one. You can record videos, voices, screen captures, and many other things. All right, Anne, I'll pass it back to you.
Wow, I'm really excited, and I actually think I could have used a lot of those in school when I was in education, and now even enlightened us on some really cool apps. And again, there's a lot to unload today, and as I said before, if you could have a few takeaways, and we will email you the slides so you can look at these later. And some of the apps might fit for you and others may not, but there's just so many out there. So Andrea, that was so comprehensive, and I really like how you broke down the whole picture of executive functioning and how we may need to have some of these technology and apps to really help us. And I love it very much. So now we're going to turn over to AI and Min, my colleague, who is the assisted technology manager. Min, we're really happy to have you here and tell us about all the new things on the horizon with AI. I'm going to have you unmute yourself, Min.
There we go.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear me?
I can. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Anne. Hi, everybody. My name is Minha. I'm the Assistive Technology Manager for Perkins. So I manage our AT on campus as well as training. I get to work with staff and students, and I get to do presentations like this. So I'm really excited to be here. So let's go to our AI has incredible potential slide. Just give me 1 second here. My focus moved. Okay, so we know that AI, artificial intelligence, has been all over the news these days. It offers a lot of potential for our students with their transition and learning. But I really want to talk about safe and responsible AI use before we jump into the tools. And it's really important to understand that, in the past couple years, the type of AI that has been in the news that has been really talked about is generative AI. So artificial intelligence has been around for a long time now, but it's pretty much has been in the background with different like automations and things like that that you may be using and weren't aware of. But generative AI is kind of like the artificial intelligence that is creating and producing content. So, writing things for us, researching things for us, creating images, things like that. So, understanding generative AI and AI in general, what are some key considerations that we need to think about when we're using this relatively new tool? So, privacy is incredibly important. So, the way that AI uses their you may be familiar with the term large language models. So, these large language models, LLMs, they need an incredible amount of data in order to do what they do. And so when you're using all of these tools that have AI integrations, you need to think about the data that you're feeding into it. And so if you have private and sensitive data, like medical data that you need to protect. You need to think about how the tools and the companies are protecting that data, so privacy. And then accuracy. You may have heard the term hallucinations. You may have heard the very infamous story of the AI telling a user to put glue on their pizza to hold their cheese together on the pizza. So as these language models become better and better, these hallucinations are, getting fewer and far in between, but they are still happening. And so knowing that and making sure that you're, double checking the results, making sure that the things that you're getting back are accurate is very important. I have a story just from a couple weeks ago when I was using one of the apps that I'm going to be talking about. I'm also blind myself. I was taking a picture of a label on this Amazon package that I was double checking to make sure that it was my package. and it totally made up an address that wasn't even in the state that I'm in. It was a completely different state. So I had to use something else to make sure that the information it was giving me was correct, because I was like, why and how did this package end up here at this address? So bias. Like I mentioned, language models work off of data that we, that we feed it. And as a society, we have biases towards racial groups, towards disability groups, whatever the identity group is. And so just being aware that these outputs that the AI is giving you could be biased is crucial in understanding how to use it effectively. And then dependence. So AI should, augment and enhance a student's independence, like all of our independence, not replace it. So learning to problem solve, to figure out different ways of completing a task is important so that we don't become too reliant on the AI for what we need. And then ethical use. So plagiarism has always been an issue, right? But I think it's becoming more of an issue in academic settings and even professional settings. And so it's important to recognize that that could be a pitfall of using AI is plagiarism, and just recognizing that it's there and teaching our students about ethical use of AI. Okay, so what are some strategies for you to work with students and teaching them how to use AI effectively and ethically? Education, of course, so teaching students about the limitations of AI, like the privacy thing that I talked about, the biases, the hallucinations, um, and then critical evaluation. That piece of understanding its limitations and learning how to use it responsibly go a long way toward uh, teaching students to critically think about how to use AI. And then collaboration and open communication. Making sure that students know to be open and honest about when they're using AI. Like, I don't think there's using these AI tools is a bad thing. I use AI on a daily basis to help me complete tasks. And it's just a matter of being upfront if I am using AI to augment my work. And then supervision. So, as you're starting to work with a student, on how to use AI, supervise their use, making sure that they're using it responsibly, and that they're understanding the limitations, and how to get around those limitations, and giving them the skills to double check the responses and generations. And then just privacy of documents. I really can't emphasize this enough, that sensitive information really has to be handled with care, and that any images, any content that you're putting into an AI, um, depending on their privacy settings, the security settings, that information could be fed into the large language models, and you really don't know that where that data is going to go and how it's going to be used. And then, for blind and low vision students who are using AI apps and tools to describe their surroundings, or getting text, like any kind of information that they're needing, using OCR, so optical character recognition, to double check the content that they're getting back is a really helpful skill. So going back to my story of the AI hallucinating a completely different address, I used an OCR app to just read the text of the label, and that was how I verified that the address on the label was indeed the address that the package was meant to get delivered to. So OCR is still relevant and still really helpful. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a few tools that have AI integrations that can be really helpful for students and their independence. So Be My AI and the Be My Eyes app. Anne mentioned Be My Eyes briefly at the beginning of this presentation, but Be My Eyes is an app that connects sighted volunteers with blind and low vision users. The Be My Eye integration is a partnership between Be My Eyes and OpenAI. So think of ChatGPT. And now inside of this app, a user can just snap a picture of something. It can be anything. It can be a document, it can be an item, it can be their surroundings. And Be My AI will spit back an image description, a very detailed image description of what it sees. And, that provides more information to the user than they otherwise would have. And, I think Be My AI is super great because it was kind of like the first of its kind that provides such detailed and rich image descriptions, and it just really opened up the world of visual information to blind and low vision individuals. So just some example use cases, like identifying products, reading labels, describing surroundings, and understanding images. I know for people, like social media has then kind of like become more accessible because of these descriptions. Like people can run photos with social media through Be My AI. They can run memes through Be My AI, and it will describe that to them. So the next app is Seeing AI. Seeing AI has been around for many years now. I believe it's coming onto it's like reaching a decade now. This is an app, a free app from Microsoft. It is available on both iOS and Android. Um, and sorry, I forgot to mention Be My Eyes is also available on both iOS and Android. And Seeing AI functions similarly to Deny AI in that it also describes visual information, but it also has different features in it, like the short text function, and document reading function, color identifier, currency identifier, and recently, it's been AI has been added into the app to provide that more detailed, richer description capability. So those are two apps, two options for you to take pictures and get descriptions or just visual information back. I'm going to talk about um, the iOS transcription of ability, starting with iOS 18. So this is with Apple Intelligence. In the voice memos app, when you record a voice memo, so an audio recording, you have the ability to generate a transcription of the audio recording, and it will convert, spoken audio into text. And some example use cases that are really helpful for students, like recording a lecture and then getting a transcription back so they don't have to listen to the lecture again. If they're in a meeting and they need to record that and then get notes from that later, this can be really helpful for that. iOS transcription is also available in the Notes app. Of course, there's dictation. Dictation has always been available on iOS. So somebody can just dictate into a note and quickly jot down ideas to or reminders. But now they can also add in an audio recording, and that audio recording can be transcribed into text. And again, this is good for note taking, for capturing ideas quickly. So what are the benefits for students with using iOS transcription? It provides an accessible, uh, sorry, provides accessible copies of uh, audio. Sorry, give me 1 second. My slides are moving on me. Okay, there we go. It provides an accessible text version of audio content, and it also enhances note taking and information retention, supports students with auditory processing challenges. So if it's easier for them to read a transcription of something instead of listening to it. And I find this is the biggest benefit of having a transcription is the ability to search through recorded material. Because there's nothing like having, recording a meeting, a presentation, a lecture, and then having to listen to it again just to find a snippet that you were looking for. With a transcription, you can just quickly search through the text that has been generated.
And then you had asked me for, this is Anne, you had asked me
Yep.
for a time check. I'm not rushing you. But I also really love that last slide because I thought about how it would really replicate and work well for students, but also in the workplace. There's so
Yes.
much value to these apps, and that one particularly stood out. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. I just want to talk quickly through these next couple slides because I personally love these, love AI for these types of tasks. So using AI for meal planning. Um, like I said, I use this on a day, on a weekly basis for meal planning, for generating, shopping lists. It's really great for that. So you just have to put in a prompt like, generate a 7-day meal plan, a vegan meal plan that is high protein. So you can put in a prompt with whatever parameters you're looking for. You can also just put in like what the ingredients that you have already in the fridge and it will create a recipe for you. I'm thinking of students who are learning to cook or to grocery shop. This can be really helpful in getting them to dabble in that and to make the task like a little bit less overwhelming. And then same thing with trip planning. So for students who are learning to travel independently and needing to figure out routes or locations that are accessible, maybe with a wheelchair or even like service animal friendly, whatever the criterion is, they can put it into an AI model like Google Gemini or ChatGPT, Copilot, and it will help them research destinations and create itineraries, finding transportation options, generate packing lists, etc. And then just this last slide here uh, with benefits. So it can reduce cognitive load, increase independence with tasks, with supervision and support. I really do believe like students can learn to increase their independence and then personalize planning. Something I didn't really mention in these slides, but some that can be really helpful with these AI is it can really break down kind of complex ideas into basic terms. So, just thinking about myself, I am not a financial person. I'm not a numbers person. So if I need something kind of explained to me in simpler terms, I will go to an AI and I will say like, please explain to me how like how the stock market is doing and what is going on with whatever is happening in the economy, and it will explain it to me in terms that I can understand. You can even say like, explain this to me like a fifth grader, or you know, you can paste in like an article and have it summarize it and things like that.
Min, we do have a question.
Yes.
Someone asked, please, if you're recording a presenter and the app provides a transcript, are there any legal concerns about being in a one-party state versus a two-party state? I think that's a political question. I'm not sure about that, but do you have to have permission or an accommodation to utilize these apps?
So that is actually a really great question, and that goes towards like the privacy piece, and also the open communication piece with using AI. I think it's always good. That you should always get permission from a presenter before recording them, um, and talking to the presenter ahead of time and asking and sharing like, I would like to record because of my disability. Are you okay with that? Um, and I think most of the time the presenter would be more than willing to work with you. And if they don't want you to record, then maybe they can record it themselves and send it to you. I have done that in the past as well.
Thank you.
Um, okay. And just some last important considerations. Verify information. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Please verify your information. Models now will provide links with things that, with articles and things across the web that it's using to generate the information that you're asking for. Teach students to follow those links and read, to verify the output. Be specific with prompts. I know some people feel like AI doesn't really work for them because they don't know how to use it. That's a fair concern. I think being super specific with the AI and giving it the parameters that you want, goes a long way towards giving you the answer that you're looking for. And I will end on a privacy note again, because this is really important to me. Um, be aware of the privacy implications of sharing sensitive and personal data with the AI. And that
Wow.
is it for me.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. Andrea and Min, either you might know now, or if you don't, we'll get back to Julie. But if anyone knows an app that will help with payment options when going to grocery shopping at just Starbucks, one of our attendees has a challenge with motor using the Android watch. Thank you. And if you don't know, we can get back to you, Julie. That's a great question.
This is Andrea. I was actually just typing in the chat. Julie, have you tried the wallet app on the Android? That's similar. The iPhone also has a wallet where you store your card in there, and then you would open the wallet app. And you can also use it on your watch as well.
I have. It's actually, it's for my son, who's got an Android smartwatch. I'm sorry, my camera is not working, hence why you don't see me on there. But he uses an Android Samsung Galaxy watch, and he would love to make his own payments, like I said, grocery store, or get himself a hot chocolate at Starbucks. But his fine motor skill, when we downloaded the Google Wallet, it either requires a PIN code or security pass, like for security reasons. And because of watch is so small, but yet so accessible because it's around his wrist, he doesn't have to hold on to, let's say, a smartphone or something like that.
Right.
We were hoping to maybe find a tool where he can just, do one swipe on his watch, and the credit card, for scanning could pop up, and he could just, put his wrist up to the various scanners that are out there to make that payment. Or if there's artificial intelligence, I don't know whether whether it's through Google and he speaks to Google, bring up my credit card. I don't know.
Julie, just for the time's sake, because we have to close now, and we have a few more slides. This is such a great question. I got a private direct message that said you should ask ChatGPT, but we're going to get back to you, Julie. So if you could kindly please put your email in the chat box, we would want to get back to you. Thank you so, so much. I'm so sorry. We ran out of time tonight, and I have a couple more slides. Thank you. Andrea, if you and Julie could connect, that was a great conversation. We just have a couple of, yeah, thank you, Julie. A couple of organizations, you'll get the slides. Thank you, Janine. Next one. These are some technologies that we discussed earlier today. We want to just let you know that we're launching a new program called Life Launch. It's an 18 to 22-year-old program for people with disabilities, visual impairment, blind, and deafblind. And it's a transition program that we're really excited to talk about. It's a 5-day residential program, so ideally you need to be in the New England or tri-state area. If you take your camera and put it to the QR code, we will get you information on that. Thanks, Julie. Got your email. We have a really exciting 4-part series that we hope everyone here attends on sexuality. It's a lunchtime series, Wednesdays at 12 o'clock. And Catherine from Elevatus and I will be having a great dialogue on really important topic that we sometimes overlook. And if you're in the New England area, May 17th, we have our half-day transition symposium here on the Perkins campus. We welcome all of you. And last but not least, our transition team is here to support you. And we do have one-on-one counseling. Andrea, Min, myself, the transition center team, we're here to answer any question related to transition and technology and AI. We have a Facebook group. We would love you to join, ask questions, build your community. You're not alone. And this is our team. We thank you so much. We went over a little bit, but we had a really great conversation this evening. I want to thank our presenters and have a great night, everyone.